Purim is a little bit like the high holidays around here. And you'll understand after I make a few announcements about just what the next 48 hours includes. Beginning with Havdalah tomorrow night, when Shabbat leaves, Purim arrives, and we will be having a Purim costume ball here at Temple. And many of you probably have already made reservations. If you have not, you are invited to just show up at the door and be delighted to have you here. We're going to have a Megillah reading tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Whether or not you come to the ball, if you'd like to be here to read the story of Esther, that's happening at 9. On Sunday morning, there is a family Purim party beginning at 9:15 for religious school families. At 10 o'clock, the kids have put together a Purim spiel under the excellent direction of Marissa Baggett and Alex Evans. Should be a really great show, Esther and the Chocolate Factory. I'm sure they'll explain why it's the Chocolate Factory during the show, but you have to come at 10 o'clock to see that, followed by lots of activities for kids of all ages. The Purim spiel, the big 80s Megillah, on Monday night at 7:30, that's a real treat, directed by Liz Rudnick, another member of our congregation who has worked so hard, and the whole cast has, and I know that it's going to be a hoot. And that's just between now and Monday night, and I didn't even actually say everything. The question is, why is there so much going on for this holiday that's actually not even called for in the Torah? It comes very late in the Bible, this holiday. In fact, it's our latest holiday, with the exception of Hanukkah, which isn't in the Bible at all. What's the big deal? Why can we so often tell the story of Purim better than we can the story of almost any other of our holidays? I was thinking about that, and you may also have come to the conclusion that one of the reasons is because retelling the story of Purim is actually a commandment on Purim, and so every single Purim, we tell the entire story in its entirety, so conceivably, many of us have told that story many times. But I don't think that's the only reason that Purim is such a big deal for us. There are a few other things that I'd like to mention that may shed some light, at least add some food for thought, as to why this holiday resonates so much with the Jews of today. And I think it really does. One of the reasons is something that makes Purim sort of unique. It is the story of Jews who are living outside the land of Israel. Why is that a big deal? Because this group of people, these Jews who were living in Persia, they weren't exiled at this point from the land of Israel. They could return if they wanted to, but they have decided to live in Persia, outside the land of Israel, which means they are deciding to live as a minority in a majority culture that is not Jewish. So the issues that they encounter in the Megillah, like assimilation, and the hiding of your Jewish identity, just don't talk about it and nobody will know. That feeling is within the Megillah. Interfaith marriage, obviously, is a major theme of the Megillah of Purim, of Esther. Anti-Semitism, based on these dual loyalties that the Jews seem to have. Haman's argument to the king, as you'll hear if you come to the Megillah reading tomorrow night, is that these people live among us, and yet they follow different laws. Their allegiance is questionable. They may be your subjects, king, but they also care about their homeland, and they care about each other. And is that a safe situation for you? That is the basis of anti-Semitism throughout history, non-religious anti-Semitism, and it emerges here in the Megillah. The moment when these forces come together, the forces of sort of hiding our identity or at least assimilating to some degree, and the latent anti-Semitism that comes to the surface, that confrontation that forces some kind of self-revelation from the Jews, where we have to say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this rings familiar and true for us. I think we have all, on some level, had that experience where we had to reveal that we were Jewish when maybe we weren't so comfortable doing so. And so this story of Esther really speaks to our experience when it comes to what does it mean to have sort of made it in a country that's not a Jewish land, and how do we deal with that? The second reason I think Purim resonates is distraction. We are a culture that loves being distracted. We see all around us that there are distractions of every shape and form. They plead with us, don't pay attention to the hard stuff, just buy me, or just use my technology and you'll feel great. Even though there is great suffering in the world, you can be distracted. And we get distracted. We get distracted by all of those forces. And Purim is all about distraction, actually. The truly adult themes of Purim could not be more serious if you really think about the story. Genocide, manipulation, sexual coercion, these are all themes in the story of Esther. But the Megillah and its holiday know that we have a hard time living under the weight of some of that stuff sometimes. And so it gives us one day to celebrate being distracted. We wear masks and costumes on Purim, but actually the celebration of Purim itself is a mask. Sometimes issues in our lives are too difficult to take in all of the time, and sometimes we need a break. And Purim recognizes that and offers us a break, a chance to be whimsical and silly and distracted. And we love a party, and so we love Purim. And finally, and most importantly, the book of Esther is remarkable because the name of God is absent from it. God is nowhere in this story, at least overtly. Nobody prays to God out loud. God doesn't obviously perform miracles in this story. On Yom Kippur, and I'm sure you'll recall from your copious notes on my sermon at Yom Kippur, I talked about how many of us hide all the time. And such is the nature of our adult lives together. We hide from hard conversations. We hide from challenging issues. Even facing ourselves, we hide from that. But throughout the reading of the Megillah, we're reminded that it's not just human beings who hide. In fact, the Megillah and the holiday of Purim assert that when we hide, so does God. And I think that resonates greatly with many of us. Passover is in a month, and we'll retell the story then too. But Moses and the Israelites did not experience a subtle hiding God. They experienced a God who performed great miracles right before their eyes. And for many of us, we may find those miracles few and far between. And so did the people who are in the book of Esther. They are not saved by an obvious act of God. They're saved by the courageous decision of individuals. And in this, I think the Megillah is trying to tell us something about the way God works in our world. Maybe sometimes there are parts of our lives. Maybe sometimes there are moments and there are people that act as miracles, even when we can't see God's face. When a person finds him or herself, God is revealed. That is the message of the Megillah. Perhaps God is hiding within us. And when we find ourselves, we find our purpose, we take brave steps that save people, save people's dignity, increase love and peace in the world, God emerges from hiding. That is what Esther does, and perhaps that is speaking to each of us. So let us enjoy the holy distraction that enters as Shabbat leaves tomorrow. It is a commandment, after all, to enjoy that day. Let's also listen for the important messages our Megillah sends to us as Jews in a diaspora community. Being a minority is not easy, not in Shushan, and not always in Memphis, Tennessee. And let us pay close attention to the God that is hiding from us sometimes, but also that sometimes emerges from hiding when we find our own inner voices, like Esther did. So I wish each of you a Chag Purim Sameach, a happy Purim. May your Purim be filled with joy and whimsy and laughter, and perhaps a little peek at the face of God hiding inside each of us. And I also wish you a Shabbat Shalom.